Somewhere out there right now, two people are sitting at a kitchen table staring at the same number, $50,000 in debt, same income, same city, same stack of accounts pulled up on their laptop. One of them closes the laptop and decides to deal with it next month, when things settle down a little, when work gets less crazy, when there's more clarity. The other one makes a decision. Not a dramatic one, not a life-altering revelation, just a decision about order. Which debt goes first? Which one second? Which gets the minimum payment and which gets absolutely everything extra? 3 years from now, the first person still has $38,000 in debt and has paid $11,000 in interest getting there. The second person is completely, permanently, mathematically debt-free. And here's the part that should make you sit down. The second person didn't earn more money, didn't move back in with their parents, didn't subsist on canned soup and financial virtue for 3 years. They simply attacked their debt in the right sequence. And the wrong sequence cost the first person nearly 2 decades and $19,000 in interest they will never get back. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and why perfectly intelligent people keep making it harder than it has to be. If you've ever opened a banking app, looked at 4 or 5 different balances, felt something that isn't quite dread but is definitely in that neighborhood, and then closed the app because you had no idea which one to touch, first subscribe and hit that like button because by the end of this video you will know the exact order. The sequence that gets you to zero in the least amount of time with the least amount of interest paid using a plan your actual human brain can realistically maintain, not the theoretically perfect plan that looks great on a spreadsheet and falls apart in February, the one that actually works. This is the full guide. Let's run it. Before I give you the sequence, I want to spend about 2 minutes on context, because if you have $50,000 in debt right now, you are not uniquely irresponsible. You are not a cautionary tale. You are statistically average in an environment that has been systematically engineered to make debt expensive, confusing, and very difficult to escape quickly. Here are the actual numbers. Total American consumer debt, not counting mortgages, is sitting at just over $5.1 trillion as of 2026. That is credit cards, auto loans, personal loans, medical debt, student loans, all of it. The average American household carrying credit card debt has a balance of roughly $9,300. The average remaining auto loan balance is around $24,000. And average student loan debt for borrowers who still have a balance is approximately $38,000. If you're carrying a combination of 2 or 3 of those, you hit $50,000 without doing anything that would read as obviously reckless from the outside. Now, here's the part that genuinely should make you angry. And I say that not to get you worked up, but because a productive amount of anger is actually useful here. Credit card interest rates in 2026 are averaging between 21 and 24%. That is the highest sustained level in the history of tracked consumer lending data. Not a little elevated. Historically, generationally elevated. The Federal Reserve raised rates to fight inflation, and the credit card industry treated that as an invitation to charge you nearly a quarter of your balance every year for the privilege of carrying it. And here's the thing about that 21 to 24% that most people don't fully internalize. That's not a penalty for being late. That's the standard rate. That's what they charge you every month you carry a balance, whether you've never missed a payment in your life or not. The system is not malfunctioning when it does this. The system is working exactly as designed. There is a multi-trillion-dollar industry whose entire business model depends on you making the minimum payment indefinitely and never quite understanding the math behind why that feels manageable, but is actually catastrophic. I'm not telling you this to make you feel worse about your situation. I'm telling you this because understanding the system changes how you approach dismantling it. This is not about what you did wrong. It is about what you are going to do next and how to do it in the exact order that costs you the absolute least. Step 0 happens before the sequence. You cannot attack your debt in the right order if you don't have a clear, complete picture of what you're actually dealing with. This sounds so obvious, it barely seems worth saying. And yet a meaningful number of people carrying significant debt have not done this. Not because they're careless, because looking at the full picture all at once is genuinely uncomfortable. There's a documented psychological pattern called financial avoidance, and it's not a character flaw. It's the brain doing what it's wired to do, protecting you from information that feels threatening by steering you away from looking at it directly. The problem is that avoidance doesn't reduce the debt, it just makes the debt more expensive while you're not looking at it. Every month you avoid the full picture, the interest runs. So before you pay an extra dollar toward anything, you sit down with a piece of paper, a spreadsheet, the back of an envelope, whatever you'll actually use, and you write down every debt you carry with exactly 4 pieces of information: the current balance, the interest rate, the minimum monthly payment, and the type of debt: credit card, auto loan, student loan, personal loan, medical debt, whatever category it falls in. That list is your complete picture, and when it's in front of you, I want you to do something counterintuitive. Ignore the balances for a moment. Look only at the interest rates. Because the interest rate on each account is the only number that determines the sequence, not the balance, not which bill arrives first, not which lender has the most aggressive collections calls, not which one stresses you out the most when you see it on the statement. The rate is the cost of keeping that debt alive. And somewhere on most people's lists, there is one account charging so much that every dollar you put toward any other debt first is a dollar doing less work than it could be. We'll get to which one that is in about 60 seconds. But first, let me show you what happens if you skip this process entirely. Let me show you what paying minimum payments on a realistic $50,000 debt stack actually costs over time. Because this number is the single most important thing in this entire video, and I need you to actually feel it, not just nod at it. Here's a debt stack that is extremely realistic for someone carrying $50,000 in 2026, $11,000 on a Visa credit card at 24.99%, $7,500 on a personal loan from a fintech lender, the kind that shows up with a pre-approval email at 11:30 p.m. when the credit card is maxed and something needs to get paid at 14% interest, $16,000 remaining on a car loan at 8.4%, $15,500 in federal student loans at 6.5%. Total balance, $50,000 exactly. Total minimum monthly payment across all 4 accounts, approximately $935 a month. Now here's what happens if this person does what feels manageable, what feels responsible, what every statement gently encourages. They pay the minimums. Every month, $935 goes out the door. They never miss a payment, never get a late fee. They're doing this correctly by every metric the lenders use to evaluate them. Over the life of that debt stack, paying only the minimise, total amount paid to reach zero, $78,000 for $50,000 of goods and services. And the timeline to accomplish this? 17 years. 17 years. And $28,000 handed over to the bank, the credit card company, the auto lender, not because of a financial emergency, not because of anything that went wrong, just because of the math built into minimum payments that nobody explains when you sign the paperwork. Now, here's what the ordered approach, the one I'm about to walk you through, does to those exact same numbers. Same income, same debt, same $50,000. By following the sequence, the total interest paid drops to roughly $9,000. The timeline to zero shrinks to about 38 months. That is a difference of $19,000 and 14 years of your life. Paid not because of a crash, not because of fraud, not because of bad luck or a bad economy. Paid because of sequence. Because nobody showed you the order. That changes today. There are 2 main schools of thought on debt payoff. You've probably heard of both of them, the debt avalanche and the debt snowball. Most personal finance content presents these as opposing philosophies where one side has the right answer and the other side is either too emotional or too cold, and you have to pick your team. Here's what that framing misses. The avalanche is the mathematically correct answer in almost every scenario. The snowball is sometimes the humanly correct answer. And knowing which one applies to you requires about 60 seconds of honest self-assessment. The debt avalanche works like this. You make the minimum payment on every debt you carry. Then you take every extra dollar, every bit of income above those minimums, and you direct it entirely at the account with the highest interest rate. When that account reaches zero, you take the minimum you are paying on it, add it to your extra ammunition, and redirect the whole amount to the account with the next highest rate. The payments gain momentum as accounts disappear because you're rolling freed up minimums forward with every account you eliminate. The mathematical case for this is airtight. The interest rate is the cost of keeping a debt alive. Killing the most expensive debt first reduces the total interest you pay by the maximum possible amount. On a spreadsheet, this is always the right answer. Here's where it can fail in practice. If your highest interest rate account also happens to have your highest balance, you might spend 12 to 18 months throwing everything at it before you see the first account drop to zero. And for a lot of people, 12 to 18 months of intense effort with no visible finish line crossed is where the plan quietly starts to unravel. You stop tracking it quite so closely. The automatic extra transfer gets paused once during a busy week and never restarted. The progress feels invisible because no account has hit zero yet, even though you've actually saved thousands in avoided interest. That's the argument for the snowball. The snowball targets the smallest balance first, regardless of interest rate. The account goes to zero faster. You get the psychological win of eliminating an account. Research on debt payoff behavior, including published work from Kellogg School of Management and follow-up studies in the Harvard Business Review, consistently finds that the snowball approach, despite costing more in interest, produces significantly higher completion rates. The visible progress keeps people engaged long enough to actually finish. So here's my honest synthesis after all of it. Ask yourself one question and answer it honestly. If you had an extra $800 a month to throw at debt and your highest interest rate account had a $12,000 balance, could you stay fully committed to that plan for 15 months before you see a single account reach zero? Not theoretically. Not with the best version of yourself. The real you in a normal month when work is busy and something breaks and Netflix releases a show you actually want to watch. If the answer is yes, without any real hesitation, run the avalanche. It will save you more money. The savings are real and they are significant. If there is any honest hesitation in that answer. If you know yourself well enough to know that invisible progress drains your motivation. If you have a history of starting financial plans enthusiastically and quietly abandoning them around month 3, run the snowball on the smaller accounts first. Build the habit. Collect 2 or 3 wins. Then switch to the avalanche order for whatever's left. Once the system is running on momentum instead of willpower, the best debt payoff plan is always the one you actually finish. A slightly less optimal plan executed completely beats a mathematically perfect plan that gets abandoned every single time. Now let's talk about the exact sequence. Step 1. Before you make a single extra payment on any debt, you put $1,000 in a high-yield savings account as an emergency buffer, not 3 to 6 months of expenses. Not the full emergency fund, we're not building that yet. We are building the minimum viable firewall between your debt payoff plan and the entirely predictable chaos of normal life. Here's why this matters. Cars break down during debt payoff. They have always broken down during debt payoff, and they will continue to do so with the precise comedic timing that only major mechanical failures can achieve. Washing machines fail, dental work happens, and when you're in aggressive debt elimination mode and an unexpected $600 expense hits with no savings behind it, where does that $600 come from? The credit card, which means you just added to the exact debt you were trying to eliminate. $1,000 in savings isn't your full emergency fund, it's armor. It's enough to absorb the most common financial disruptions without putting you back to square one. Get this in place first. For most people, it takes between 4 and 8 weeks of redirecting income before the debt payoff sequence officially begins. Do not skip it. The plan breaks without it. Step 2. Every dollar above your minimum payments goes at any debt charging above 10% APR. This is the non-negotiable first target. The reasoning is identical to the reasoning behind eliminating credit card debt before investing at 10% or above. The guaranteed return you earn by eliminating that debt is better than virtually any investment you can make with the same dollar. Warren Buffett has averaged roughly 20% annually over his career. That is the greatest investing track record in the history of the modern stock market. Your credit card at 24.99% is mathematically outperforming Warren Buffett. The first obligation of every extra dollar you have is to eliminate debt charging above 10% by interest rate, highest to lowest, until everything above that threshold is gone. Step 3, and this is where I want you to pay close attention. This is the one exception to the debt first rule. Miss it and you leave real money on the table. While you are actively paying off your high interest debt, if your employer offers a 401k match, you contribute exactly enough to capture the full match. Not a dollar more than the match threshold, but not a dollar less. Because the employer match is an immediate, guaranteed 100% return on the day your contribution lands before the market does a single thing. 100% immediate guaranteed return is better math than eliminating a 24% interest rate. It's not even close. You do not walk past a guaranteed doubling of your money in order to pay down expensive debt faster. You capture the free money and then go back to destroying the debt. If you are not currently contributing enough to get your full match, the first thing you do when you finish this before any debt calculation is log into your 401k portal and fix that number. Step 4. Once the above 10% debt is eliminated and the match is captured, the next target is debt sitting between 7 and 10% APR. This is typically where you'll find personal loans from recent years, some private student loans, car loans originated in the current elevated rate environment. The interest cost at this level is real. It's less dramatic than a credit card, but it still exceeds what you'd expect to earn in a diversified index fund in any given year with any reasonable certainty. Pay these off aggressively, avalanche order, before turning serious attention to investing beyond the match. Step 5. Debt below 7% APR. And here is where the honest answer stops being simple. Below 7%, most federal student loans fall in this range. Some older car loans, the occasional personal loan from a credit union. For someone with excellent credit, the math genuinely becomes a legitimate judgment call between accelerated payoff and investing alongside the debt. A diversified index fund has historically returned around 10% per year on average and around 7% after inflation. So paying extra on a 6.5% student loan versus putting that same dollar in a Roth IRA is not a mathematically obvious decision in either direction. The answer depends on your tax situation, your age and investment timeline, whether the loan is federal or private, and most importantly, whether carrying this debt costs you more in psychological weight than the interest rate suggests it costs you in dollars. If carrying any debt at all makes you anxious, limits your decision making, keeps you from feeling financially operational, pay it off. The psychological return on clearing debt is real and legitimate, even when the mathematical return is neutral. If you're in your 20s or 30s, emotionally comfortable with low-rate debt, and you have decades of compounding ahead of you, investing alongside that debt is a defensible and reasonable choice. Some of the most financially rigorous people I've seen do exactly this. Do not let anyone tell you there's one definitively correct answer below 7%. Anyone who says otherwise is selling you certainty they don't actually have. Let me make this real, because I think watching the whole sequence run start to finish for one realistic person is worth more than another 10 statistics. Meet Marcus. He's 31. Works in operations at a mid-sized logistics company in Columbus, Ohio. Earns $68,000 a year. His employer matches 401k contributions, dollar for dollar up to 4% of his salary. Marcus has been contributing at 2% for 3 years because, and I'm quoting him here, "I kept meaning to fix that, but the enrollment portal was confusing. After taxes, his take-home is about $4,300 a month. After rent, groceries, utilities, insurance, and his phone bill, he has about $1,100 a month he could theoretically redirect toward debt if he chose to. His debt stack is exactly $50,000. $11,000 on a Visa at 24.99%. Minimum payment $220 a month. $7,500 on a personal loan at 14%. Minimum payment $178 a month. $16,000 on a car loan at 8.4%. Minimum payment $367 a month. 15,500 in federal student loans at 6.5%. Minimum payment $170 a month. Total minimums per month $935. Extra available about 1,100. First thing Marcus does is fix his 401k contribution to 4%, which captures the full employer math. That adjustment costs him about $90 a month from his take home once you account for the pre-tax treatment. His extra ammunition drops to approximately $1,010 above minimums. He sets 1 month aside to build the $1,000 emergency buffer in a high-yield savings account paying 3.8%. Firewall set. Now the sequence begins. The Visa goes first, 24.99%. The most expensive account on his list by a significant margin. Marcus pays the $935 in minimums across all 4 accounts every single month. Then he redirects every bit of that $1,010 in extra capacity straight at the Visa balance. He's putting roughly $1,230 per month against an $11,000 balance. Month 9. The Visa hits 0. That account is done. Marcus has now freed up the $220 Visa minimum. He rolls that entire amount forward. It joins his extra capacity and redirects the combined $1,230 at the personal loan at 14%. The personal loan had $7,500 to start, and 9 months of minimums have already reduced it. He's now putting well over $1,200 a month at the remaining balance. Month 15. The personal loan is gone. He's freed up another $178 a month. He rolls everything forward and hits the car loan at 8.4%. At this point, he's directing about $1,380 a month at a car loan with roughly $13,000 remaining. Month 25. The car loan is done. Now it's just the student loans. Approximately $15,000 remaining at 6.5%. Marcus is now rolling approximately $1,550 a month at that balance. Month 35. The student loans hit 0. Marcus is completely debt-free. 35 months from the day he made the decision. 3 years and a month. Total interest paid across the entire $50,000 stack, approximately $9,200, compared to the $28,000 he would have paid on minimums over 17 years. Savings. Just under $19,000. Timeline reduction, 14 years. And at month 36, instead of $935 a month going to creditors, Marcus is investing the entire amount into his Roth IRA, into his 401k beyond the match, into a taxable brokerage account if the tax-advantaged buckets fill. The money that spent 3 years eliminating debt now spends 30 years compounding. The car didn't get cheaper. His salary didn't double, he just followed the order. I'd be doing you a real disservice if I left out this part. Because the moment you start looking at your debt with purpose and intention, a specific category of financial products materializes with the explicit goal of capturing that energy and redirecting it somewhere profitable for everyone except you. Trap 1. Debt consolidation loans. The pitch is genuinely appealing because there's a logical version of it that actually works. Take all your high-interest debt, roll it into one personal loan at a lower rate, one payment, one account, one interest rate to think about. Clean and simple. And sometimes this is a legitimate tool. If you're carrying credit card debt at 22% and you can consolidate it into a personal loan at 9% with a fixed payoff term, that is a real savings. You run the math, you verify the new rate is actually lower after accounting for any origination fees, you calculate the total paid under both scenarios, and if the numbers work in your favor, it's a reasonable move. Here's where it goes catastrophically wrong. Most people who consolidate debt without simultaneously addressing the spending behavior that created the debt end up within 18 months, carrying the new personal loan at 9% and a freshly rebuilt credit card balance at 22%. The consolidation solved the rate problem on existing debt. It didn't change the underlying pattern. If you consolidate, you cut the cards, or at minimum, you stop carrying a balance on them. The loan doesn't fix anything if the cards refill. Trap 2. Balance transfer cards. The 0% introductory APR. Move your balance here, pay no interest for 12 to 21 months, attack the principal directly. This tool genuinely works under one specific condition. You can pay off the entire transferred balance before the promotional period ends. Because here is what happens at month 13 or month 22 when the introductory rate expires. The rate does not migrate to something reasonable. It goes to whatever the card's standard purchase APR is, which in 2026 runs anywhere from 19 to 28% depending on your credit. And the transfer fee, typically 3 to 5% of the amount transferred, is due immediately when you move the balance. So you're paying 3 to 5% upfront to borrow money at 0% temporarily. If the math on your timeline makes payoff realistic before the clock runs out, it's a legitimate tool. If you move a $10,000 balance, pay 12 months of interest-free minimums, and still have $8,000 on the card when the promotional period expires, you have exchanged one expensive problem for a more expensive one with a $300 to $500 fee attached. Trap 3. Debt settlement. This is the category that requires the most caution because the marketing around it is frequently predatory and the downsides are significantly underexplained at the point of sale. Debt settlement companies offer to negotiate with your creditors to accept less than the full balance in exchange for a lump sum payment. The pitch is that you pay less overall. Here's everything they don't lead with. The process requires you to stop paying your creditors while they negotiate, because the negotiating leverage only exists once you're behind. Stopping payments destroys your credit score. We're talking drops of 100 points or more. Then there are the company's fees, typically 15 to 25% of the enrolled debt amount. And then there's the tax exposure that blindsides most people. The IRS treats forgiven debt as taxable income. A creditor forgives $10,000 of your balance, and you receive a Form 1099. C for $10,000 of income you did not actually receive in cash. You owe income tax on money you never saw. For most people carrying consumer debt, the combination of credit damage, company fees, and the unexpected tax bill makes settlement significantly more expensive in total than simply following the payoff sequence. There are narrow scenarios, severe hardship, debts already in collections where it's the least bad option. But as a strategic choice for someone with income and the ability to pay, it's almost always worse than the math makes it appear. Trap 4. The invest while in debt argument. And I want to handle this one carefully because it's the trap that gets promoted most aggressively as the sophisticated, forward-thinking move, and there's a version of it that's true and a version that quietly does significant damage. The true version I've already covered. Capture your 401k employer match before paying extra on anything. That is a guaranteed 100% return on the contribution day. Invest for that, full stop. The version that does damage looks like this. Carrying a credit card at 22% interest while simultaneously putting extra money into a brokerage account because, as the argument goes, the stock market returns 10% over time and you don't want to miss compounding. The market does return around 10% on average. Some years it returns 40, some years it returns negative 20. Not reliably, not predictably in any given 12-month window. Your credit card, by contrast, charges you 22% every single month with the consistency of a utility bill. You are guaranteed to lose the spread between what you earn in the market and what the card charges in interest because the card's return is fixed and certain while the markets is variable and not. Destroy the high rate debt first. Invest beyond the match when the high rate debt is gone. The math on this is not a close call. I can hear the questions forming. Let me take 3 of them. First, what about my credit score while I'm doing this? Your credit score is driven primarily by 2 things, payment history and credit utilization. The sequence I've described has you making the minimum payment on every account every single month without exception. No missed payments, no late fees, no negative marks. And as your balances decrease, your credit utilization ratio, the percentage of available credit you're using, improves. Most people see their credit score go up during aggressive debt payoff, not down. The one exception, if you close accounts as you pay them off, For older accounts especially, closing them reduces your average account age and your total available credit, both of which factor negatively into your score. The better move is to pay an account to zero, keep it open, and use it for one small recurring purchase per month, a streaming subscription, a gas fill up to keep it active, zero balance, small recurring charge, full monthly payoff. Your score improves and the account stays healthy. Second, should I pay off student loans or invest alongside them? If the student loans are federal and the interest rate is below 7%, you're operating in the zone where this is a genuine judgment call rather than a mathematical slam dunk in either direction. A reasonable default. If you're under 35 with a long investment runway and you're emotionally comfortable carrying the debt, investing alongside low-rate student loans is defensible. If you're over 40, or the rate is above 7%, or you're in a variable rate situation, prioritize the loan. And if you're in public service, working toward any form of federal loan forgiveness, or enrolled in an income-driven repayment plan, do not aggressively pay down loans you might have forgiven. Run your specific numbers with an actual forgiveness calculator before making extra payments on federal debt. Third, what if I can't actually cover all my minimum payments? Then the sequence changes entirely, and the single most important call you can make is to your creditors before you miss a payment. Most credit card companies and loan servicers have hardship programs, temporary interest rate reductions, deferred payment arrangements, restructured terms. These programs exist and they are not advertised because it is not in the lender's financial interest to advertise them, but they are available. And you have dramatically more negotiating leverage before a missed payment than after one. If you can see the shortfall coming, call, ask specifically for their hardship or financial difficulty department. The person answering the main line may not be the right person. Ask to be transferred. Let me leave you with the part that goes beyond the math. Because the math, as I hope I've shown, is actually not that complicated once it's laid out sequentially. What makes debt hard isn't the arithmetic. It's what the debt does to every other decision while it's outstanding. Carrying significant debt is not just a financial condition, it's weight. It's the reason people hesitate before asking for a raise, because what if they have to explain why they need it? It's why people stay in jobs that aren't right for them, because the monthly minimums don't leave room to absorb the temporary income drop of a career change. It's why people postpone starting businesses, taking sabbaticals, relocating, or making any decision that involves short-term financial risk. The debt's influence extends far beyond the monthly payment. It quietly shapes what you believe is available to you. The other side of that, and I've watched enough people get there to describe it with some confidence, is not primarily about the money. People who complete debt payoff describe it in terms of air, room, the feeling of making a decision in March without running a calculation about whether they can afford the consequences in November. The ability to walk away from something, a job, a city, a situation without doing a spreadsheet first. The sequence I've walked you through today is not a sacrifice. It's the shortest path between the weight you're carrying right now and the optionality on the other side. And every month you run the sequence correctly is a month closer to a financial life where the decisions are yours to make freely without the debt making them first. Let me bring this all the way back to where we started. Two people, same kitchen table, same $50,000, same paycheck. One closed the laptop, one made a decision about sequence. 35 months later, one of them is investing money that used to belong to a credit card company. The other is on month 35 of what will eventually become 17 years of minimum payments and $28,000 in interest. The difference between them was never intelligence, never some deep character-revealing quality. It was order, knowing which account to target first and why, and then executing that one unglamorous thing for 35 months. Here's the full sequence. Worth writing down somewhere, you'll actually see it. $1,000 in a high-yield savings account before anything else. Capture the full 401k employer match. Do this in parallel with everything that followed. Every extra dollar at debt above 10%, avalanche order until it's gone. Then debt from 7 to 10%. Then make an honest call about debt below 7% based on your rate, your age, and whether carrying it costs you more psychologically than the math suggests. Then invest every freed up payment and do not stop. That is the order. That is the entire machine. Before you do anything else today, build your debt inventory. 4 columns: balance, rate, minimum payment, account type, and when it's in front of you, look at the interest rates and identify the most expensive thing on your list. That's where the first extra dollar goes. That's where the sequence begins. Drop a comment and tell me what's going first. What's the first account on your list you're taking to zero? I read every single one. And if this video finally made the order make sense, share it with one person who's been meaning to deal with their debt since the last time rates went up. The math works the same whenever they watch it. The only difference is how much interest runs in the meantime. Hit subscribe if you want the next one. I'll see you there.